Hello everyone. So that's yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, that was just me moving my chair. Anyway, so this is the recording for the other old film. So just make sure the sound's down and okay. Yeah, so it's just a bit of some visuals whilst I talk about the context. Yeah, because I might as well talk about that first because as you know that I created the first film, based on the first book I've made, which was once a storybook, then made arguably made better into the novel, and then after that, I was then having to go with making a a animation adaptation of it, and because whilst I think I'm almost started from scratch at this point with the reboot because there's some moments and ideas which I've somewhat struggled to to carry over, like a couple of moments, but not really like the whole structure, because there's a difference between starting from scratch or improving a flawed story. And yeah, I think I'm almost like going from scratch. Um, I remember thinking that this second film's definitely more inferior than the previous one, because the previous one had like its own nice charm to it, and I think it was like paced better, and I like the more climatic parts, and even the way it was adapted into a smaller story just to fit with the whole animation format. I find that like quite satisfying with the previous one, but in here it just felt really like undercooked, and you'll see what I mean when we'll go through, because every now and again I do like rewatch the first one. I do think, oh, it did have potential despite the flaws, but I didn't feel the same here. And and yeah, and as you know, yeah, this continued because it would have probably, gone from book 3, 4, and 5 in the sequel, and then, oh, oh sorry, I got a tooth problem. Anyway, um, and then I think it would have like animated like what the comics were, like each of the comics. Less, no, I think the animations came before the comics, but I think something similar would have been made in that way anyway. But anyway, so this is just like the original continuity, which which I yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, pretty much scrapping, yeah, because it's like a retrospective of um because this is like the rest of the animation commentaries, and then the rest of the haphazard commentary stuff will be posted after a lot of the reactions to films and that, a lot of other pieces of media, and then it will come back to like commentaries of the novels, the guide that I've made, even a discontinued sequel novel which I've attempted once, yeah, earlier this year, 2025 by the way. And so yeah, I think a lot of these things will be easier to say once we get to the conclusion, but regardless, we'll go from the get-go. If it just start from there, these PowerPoint videos coming ready off, but regardless, yeah, we'll just get going. So yeah, previously it was like the full title, then the subtitle, but in here it's one then the other, which is different accidentally, but I don't know. I think probably that format's better because you usually see the main title and then the following. So yeah, and then if you pause it quickly, with the Legion taking all these forces, this has severely Disciples' forces, making them wonder who else to get involved. Meanwhile, the Legion have been leaked online, making controversial figures in the eyes of the public, despite the success to keep her safe. Okay, so if comparing to, we'll say the novels being like the more definitive continuity from what this is adapting from. So I remember making all of this a lot smaller, especially with because Ironfall loses all of his goons at the end off screen, which meant that yeah, Torrid would have still continued to be his own force. So Mechadrill would have still been involved somewhere or another, although I don't know where he would have gone, and unfortunately no other piece of media, not even the novels, can't really answer what Mechadrill's been up to all this time, which I think was a severe flaw in this whole story. But yeah, it looks like Orphan, had like an army which benefited Zynfor, because in the novels, Zynfor had a whole heap of alliances. And granted, a lot of them weren't listed and also went off screen, but at least he still got a lot more. Like my tooth. Ugh, stop it. Anyway, um, and then but yeah, it's just the novels made it a lot bigger. But yeah, I did really make it smaller because I knew back then that by shrinking the amount of stuff involved, yeah, to make it a bit more smaller and efficient. I just knew it worked that way, and I feel like it paid off once again better in the previous film. And even the reboot. I think what I will be focusing on will be smaller. Like for instance, just go for Polly and Nicole, just roaming about, and then only animate other characters if needed. Because I've kind of struggled to animate or think of ideas that involves the entire team. Like it benefits the first animated short, which we'll see later on, because with the bigger team, it means bigger team needing a sort out a bigger situation. But as you'll see in both this animation right here and the previous one, they're trying to animate a team like from scene to scene. It became just quite tiring, just making me wonder how to occupy the lot. And there were some ideas, such as having some of them have be down and then the others carry on the task. Like there's moments like that, but it was just like extremely tiring. But anyway, so going back to so for wondering who to get involved, and I think that's where Ozona comes in, because he's always been kind of his own little fraction despite working with Zone 4. And then it also continues that story part, which I no longer like, about the Legion being leaked online, and then but they've keeping they've been successfully keeping Earth safe. Although, what do they? Oh, I don't know, because we haven't, because unlike the novels, we haven't seen them fight off other alien threats off the radar. So without that, I don't know what the Legion would be doing in this own continuity of just those two films. Definitely not crime fighting, because I felt like they've just been revealed in front of the public for the first time. Anyway, so we'll get going and see what else we can make out of this. Yeah, because I'm far less familiar with this one, and just go show that this is a much inferior piece of work. Quick advice which I've heard of when it comes to title crawls, and that you leave it on until what was it? At least let the person read it 3 times. That's the rule I've heard about, and hopefully that's applied here, especially a much smaller paragraph. Okay, and we have these weird images popping up, and it should be in speech bubbles, which was done a couple of times, both this animation and the previous one. But it's just that would just communicated it better. Regardless, Designful right here, he's like, this Legion's becoming a problem, what shall we do? And so Designful's right here, and he's talking to one of his goons. Just the goons, no one else. Because even in the novels, it was said that Zivrock and many others were involved in this mill meeting too. But anyway, so this visual is flashing to kind of indicate that what they're trying to talk about. Well, here's a speech, but I just wish more communication was like that. I can still do something like that in the reboot, but as the reboot is going to be like a lot more snappier, I guess it just depends what happens. But anyway, so Ekron's mentioning Ozona, and I really like how he's translated into 8-bit, like how his face is getting hidden by a hood. Although his alien was said to have a bit of a longer face, but I still like his look regardless. So this is his setting, and that's meant to be a castle that's meant to be far away, and I don't think that's translated very well, especially when you can see Valis on the top left. He's standing too high. He should be almost like level with Ozona. And maybe if I made, I don't know, the land further ahead, like slightly lighter or darker over time, that would have helped showcase how far away it really is. But anyway, so you had the stoners on the right started to form a chain. And also in both the storybook and the novel, Ekron meets Ozona in the castle, but instead he's already out in the open. So Ekron, without a walk animation, just slowly goes to Ozona, And then once again, just another image of that Tom being like, oh, we've had this Legion, it's causing a problem, shall we go to Earth? And then Ozona turns away, and then he mentions the Earth to the Stone Nose, and it's going to cut. Yeah. So just communicating that. You can see all of those aliens got spooked. So yeah, I just seem to like those big eyes. I think I'll continue that in the reboot as well. But anyway, so this is where Wolf is, well, I don't know, having like a chat with these Slashes, who are Hasnos' race in the main story. And I'll say this before I forget it. When the Hasnos tries to fight Ozona later on, that's not in this version, and nor is the cameo with Pasnos and Torrid at the end either. So once again, maybe it's going to be smaller, and I'm really curious to see how I would have translated the other 3 stories. I'll probably do like a quick run for at the end of this video actually, but regardless. So yeah, this is Slashing Planet, and the planet is translated okay. I think this image I've used for both the main comic, despite the incompletion, and even the novel videos as well, to create a visual, because this is one of the casinos. But regardless, Ozona came about, and he flew on a rock with telekinesis. So all of them are away. It's a bit flashy as well, so once again, it's not animated well, and without the walking animation, it looks really naff. So yeah, and once again, Ozona's like, oh, it's this Legion, so we can probably assume it's like a henchman of some sort. And with the Slashes running away from Ozona, that kind of indicates he's kind of bad news, to which that's one of the better story execution parts, or better, a more effective way of communicating something. Anyway, so here's a post, and you can see that there's a lot of dislikes compared to likes, and public vote. So this was I think this was more of an original idea from the animation as well, because I need to communicate effectively of what the public could think of this. And the whole thing about Retron leaking the Legion, that's not so much in here. It's almost as if that maybe someone caught eye of them. No. Maybe just like saw them once, start recording them, and then it leads to an idea of, should we have this Legion as our heroes, if they have been crime fighting or protecting us against aliens, which I kind of prefer compared to the novel even, because I don't know, does it? I feel like I think it just makes it's like something that's currently happening on Earth. And then when you see the Legion be far more successful in the public eye, that makes it a bit more of a victory, but more of a victory, involving fighting Ozona and saving the Earth once again. Yeah, it's just a bit more of a balance, knowing that Ozona was like the main threat, and then the public seeing them that way just just seems to be better, because in the second novel there was this like weird setup where looks like the Legion, we're gonna like really suffer with this leaking, and there was like a bit of a mystery of who done it, only for then the Ozona stuff to like start mixing in, which I remember thinking that should have been done far better. But anyway, so you can probably assume it's like a projection that's coming from the laptop, and this is definitely the Legion's room, because there's the vault. If the life force has gone back in that vault even, so is that where it's currently protected? I think that is in line with the other stories, or other versions of the story. So yeah, once again the other posters there. So yeah, it's a long time to see what the poster's like, and then Mike quickly comes into frame, and I remember him being a bit delayed, like that, which it's not great. He should have like come full frame and then say, oh, we've found this unknown figure at this land. And I think that's communicated okay again. I just really miss those speech bubbles right now. I wish I'd used them more. And then but it's really like suckish at times, isn't it? I feel like the previous film had far more momentum. Anyway, this area looks really nice, except that it's too detailed at a point where this fight scene actually was kind of hard to watch. And when you watch the first rebooted animation, or at least like the first pilot, it's not only being careful with the amount of detail, but by making like the setting darker, it makes the characters pop out more, therefore makes it far easier to watch them. So yeah, that does seem to be the way to do it. And so the Legion were chasing after Beowulf. So it's skipping all the city stuff. So once again, it's put in that tiny little subplot, like shrinking that more, which once again I kind of see that as another improvement because it's just already focusing on the Ozona stuff. So that I like at least. And what we'll say is that it is like skipping other parts. You know, we skipped the whole thing about saving the president, which I guess it was kind of cool to see what they were doing from day to day, which is missing in this animation. But you know, it was still like a day-to-day introduction, and then it is like skipping like other character parts, like when Samuel's trying to like update his technology, or where Pod and Vectron have a bit of an argument, and Vectron also like trying to recover after his injury from the previous story as well. So yeah, there's just parts like that. Oh, not to mention, I don't think we see. We might see Dion's like introduction before he comes back. Anyway, we'll wait and see. So anyway, so Pod summons some ice, and oh yeah, the reason they're having the question marks because this is the first time Pod uses the power of ice, you know, which is in line with the books, and they're all like confused, being like, oh, you know, this thing just formed ice, and by the way, I really don't like the way Pod's holding the trident. It just feels like he's holding it from the handle, which isn't very good. Although if going back a bit, I'm curious to see what Hell's transformation's like. Not. I'm not too fond of that. It just feels far too brief. Because once again, the reboot, you know, that pilot animation, which will be released later on this month, because it does have like a revamped version of Hellwolf with a different creature design as well. And yeah, that animation is far better. You can actually see the A to B, you know, happening. But instead, it just looks like Hellwolf just like knuckles down, then forms into a couple of shapes, and then transforms. And I remember liking the design of the Haywan at first, but I don't know, just it's not really like fitting with me. And once again, the reboot has got a far better design for her, even one that's far more dynamic, especially when the film will just be covering all angles instead of treating the whole thing like a 2D game, which this film and the previous film did. And also, this is so yeah, Sammy and Arvin are watching at least, but for no Cole and Pod's like turning away whilst Petals are transforming. I feel like that's a bit daft and out of character for them. You know, they must be like combat ready. But anyway, so let's see what happens. So yeah, this tree is in front of Zami, so I don't think you can see either projectile, like not very well. Even Pod's trident is doing more ice stuff, which I guess is like a more of an indicator, but still. Anyway, so Zami's tried to set Powerwolf and it's done nothing. Yeah, because I think was Powerwolf like more immune to electricity? That was something I never really confirmed properly. But anyway, so Hell's just shot a projectile very slowly, and that's it. Sammy looks like he's got a nose. Yeah, because none of these characters have noses, not really. And if we get Pod and Nicole finally get themselves ready, so Nicole moves. Arvin jumps on Hellwolf and it looks like it's going to get knocked. Yeah. I like that throw. And then Nicole shoots probably an explosive. Oh, that looks a bit. That's like a labouring problem. It's like the previous position. It's accidentally overlapped like the following or something. But anyway, it looks like Pod's gone on top. And then there's transformation again. One that's it's better in the later parts, but once again, it's just that didn't look like very convincing. And also that fight scene was terrible. Although I guess if looking at it from a storytelling perspective, you know, I guess it was like tricky for Zami and Arvin, who were like less experienced than Nicole and Pod managed to find their way eventually. So at least like the teamwork theme is there, but not great. But anyways, here's the confronting. So you can see that they're all like pointing their weapons at her, and yeah, there's a bit of a weird long pause because I guess what I was thinking of is, you know, just let the audience, you know, just watch out for, or at least like look at what's happening in the image, but with no movement and nothing looking pretty, like that pretty, it's that's where it becomes like even hard to rewatch for me actually. But anyway, so Hellwolf's like, oh, you know, Ozona's going after the planet, so off they go with that. in a bit. So they like believed her immediately, yeah, because the novel actually like covered for how to believe her and what to believe of her, and what they all think of her as well. Yeah, because I know that the animation was going to be smaller, more visual anyway, but and despite the novel's flaws, at least it was trying to explore all sorts of mindsets in that. And yeah, because these animations and even the reboot could still be like just fun pieces you need to be enjoyed by. But I don't know, even despite how visual and snappy and short my reboot animations are, at least I will be trying to go for like some well-rounded themes somewhere. And because not to mention, because I had the idea of posting them like scenes, and once I've reached an end point I can then put them all together as like a full film, which could be quite cool. It's like the best of both worlds. And then anyway, so this is the Unconvincing Space, and because of the colouring of this ship it's merged in a bit, which is not great. But anyway, now we're on the Ozona's planet, and yeah, also like the book, the tone crashed, and because the Tengas and other stories entangle them up in seaweed to be like, oh, what are you doing here? And then they explain. But instead, it looks like the Tengas are already friendly, which is okay. It works well enough. I don't have a problem with it. It's just a tad less dynamic, that's all. But anyway, they have spanners already, which creates a bit of a plot hole. But you never know, they could be like spanners made out of diamonds from this cove, who knows. And so it's image bit still once again, but at least that was communicated okay and quick enough, I suppose. That's a communication spell, which I think we saw a bit of in the previous one, so you can somewhat infer what's happening here, especially when these lines indicate a signal. So whatever they were having a chat about, you could imagine them being updating about all sorts. And because in the storybook or novel, it was the storybook weirdly had Ozona quickly visits Ironfall in person, but in the novel, they just had a communication spell chat and then talk about the elements. So I don't know whether this came before or after, maybe before, but who knows. But anyway, so Zona's got his air powers and he's sensed the tone. The Olsen tone vehicle, and then Zona's like, oh, Valis go after what I sensed, which is a 9, and oh yeah, even send him as well. Okay, so this is like a big smiley face to indicate that everyone's happy, which is not. No, I don't like it. It is like a weird way of saying that the ship's happy. And yeah, so like the novel, Valis comes in, and then Zami was weirdly on top of Pod then. Yeah, everyone's overlapping one another, which is not great, and also Pod's merging too much with the background, which is once again not great. But then Hellwall's transforming already, and that looked kind of better there. And I think maybe it's because of the environment being less detailed. Maybe in the previous scene of her, I think maybe the shapes were in the wrong order. And not to mention, we skipped the part where Hellwolf talks about her backstory of how Ozona first got involved with her in the first place. But as a simpler story, we can just infer that he's just, was like told to go after the Earth and need to then fight back, which is, just easy enough to grasp. So Valis is it's like, I recognise that trident has the ice power. So he slowly jumps towards Pod, nabs it, and then pops the Tengas into the ice. And consider what the Tengas have done for them, that makes them, go and fight Valis. And even with Pod and Valis, both being Morphils, I wonder if that gets communicated at all here, because the storybook and novel then made an effort about that. And not to mention, both the storybook and novel had that instance where they were, they had a problem with the Tengas because they got a bit defensive, which meant that the Legion had to fix the tone on their own until the Tengas helped them out. But instead, the Tengas already helped them out from the get-go, which is more efficient. So once again, this is like a story change I'm all right with. So anyway, so Valis just getting beaten up by animals, and I don't know what the others are doing. What are they doing? I don't know. Oh, Zami's been told to try and break the ice, so that's fair enough. Although, did Pell just get knocked over? I'll just have a look. Yeah, just the whole repetitive movements is just not very dynamic either. That throw was cool but too slow, but anyway, so that's Valis throwing. And so that means that Helm's down, and did Valis just like flatten his face onto Marvin? Okay, fair enough. I suppose you can do that as a tank character. Oh, so Pod has his hand up being like, please stop. And yeah, because the trident's dropped. And yeah, Hel's going back to her own form, and I think Nicole's going to provide first aid. Yeah, there you go. And what's weird is that a lot of things should be happening simultaneously. Nicole could have easily have gone to Hellwolf whilst the rest continues, but maybe it was just trying to communicate enough about Pod telling him to stop, but still. But anyway, it looks like Valis was about to strike Pod with the trident, and Nicole was the one to stop Valis, which is in line with the other two versions of the story, except that Valis falls down, and maybe Valis is made to be weaker if he got shot in the back instead of having a grenade to his mouth, but fair enough, power levels can vary. And then this is where the one of the Tengas was like, oh, that trident, does have ice powers, and so that's where Pod has a bit of a mess around with it, which I kind of like, but it's a bit abstract and out of nowhere, and without knowing of it as ice, it just looks like, I don't know, like a Green Lantern rip-off. But yeah, it's meant to be ice, and once again, I think the reboot actually makes it a lot like, makes it actually look like ice. Anyway, so here's the Atone, and this is probably the best scene in the film, despite other bits I like so far. But unlike the other settings, this has an animated background, and whilst you can probably see where it loops, and yeah, you can kind of see the looping from place to place. But anyway, let's just but this is like looping that's fine because like rocks, very all look similar anyway. But anyway, so let's just go back to the beginning. But yeah, even this animated background, sorry about that, this animated background kind of continued to show me that this format of animation still does have potential, as evident by the reboot animations I'll be doing. Okay, so question mark being like, what's one of these? And then these were the Stonos, which were sent earlier. We had a small hint of that earlier. So I've been trying to fire a laser, and these blue lasers are being shot at by the Stonos, and Hellwolf tried to shoot some quills, and they all missed them. And then, Zambi tried to go for a lightning strike, but then Pod throws some ice, and that knocks them off. And then, Pod summoned some water, which grabbed the other ones. That's kind of neat. And then they set that one on fire, fair enough. And then the rest gone indoors inside the ship. And then Hellwolf, Ozona is flashing in a holographic way just to indicate, this is where I'm going for next, which is not a great way of communicating. But anyway, that was a good fight scene. I actually quite enjoyed that. And then this indicates, but yeah, so now we can tell that the land is far away, and the way Ozona pulls the ship, and then the residents, a bit sudden, but I like it still. And I think the sudden nature probably matches with how they're feeling, so that I like as well. And then this is where, and so after the Legion, get pulled in, Ozona's like, where's the Earth? And then, I like this snippet. So Nicole actually gets out a walkie-talkie, and whilst I think they were bigger in the reboot, but regardless, she just has one behind her back which calls down to her. And whilst the story doesn't do what the novel did, just sorry, lose my breath. Anyway, so yeah, because the novel covered the idea of Dion's very busy, we're only calling him if necessary, and you can see why it could be a necessary area of time here because they're cornered. And so Ozona's like, well, where is the Earth? And so then he grabs Sammy, as he'd done before, and then getting the sword out hints a type of threat. And then Hellwolf's like, this is where the Earth's at, with the location needle. And I think, yeah, that angry face comes in too soon. And not to mention a square angry face when we had the circular smiley face. Either should have been circle or square. I can't do both, so that doesn't work. But anyway, so yeah, Nicole's angry with Hellwolf, understandably, because it's risking the Earth. then Sammy's like thrown aside, and then Ozona then zaps all of them. I felt like it missed Arvin there, but never mind. But anyway, they all just get zapped once, but Ozona immediately. Oh, not to mention having them all like zapped once in that sudden manner, that works far better than the storybook and the storybook and the novel. Because in both versions they get zapped constantly and somehow manage to get walking, except Zamu goes through like a weird power phase. But here, here, they're just shocked suddenly, and then Ozona quickly protects himself from an incoming missile from Dion. So yeah, that once again is already better. And then Dion's like, oh, you lot go, I'll fight him. And so all of them get moving. And the previous versions had them trying to run whilst fighting the Sochas, and even Pod stays behind to fight the Sochas, causing a flood. But instead they all leave, which once again shortens the story, and it's a change, that's fine. And so anyway, so let's see how this fight goes. So Ozona tries all the tricks, like trying the sword, and then the sword really disappears. Maybe it gets kicked away. That could be something. But yeah, then Dion gets bounced away from a force field, and then Dion, just puts his arm away, so or just lifts it up so that the rocks don't get him as much. But yeah, with his own power being out, that indicates the incoming boulders, and then the force field goes against the blazers. And this is where Dion's knocked out. And I don't like the other leg. That doesn't look like a very convincing lying down position, but it's in line with both, with how too much energy did what's like too much for Dion. But anyway, he's got put away and down in the water. And then the stoner's like, oh, we found the earth. And then Tammy wasn't injured compared to not this time, so having him lie down in that manner does not make sense here. But anyway, so everyone's still angry. Mike's just quickly coming to them, but you can also cleverly see that in the window, Retron's about to shoot a stun laser of some kind to get them down. And what's interesting about the turret that Retron has in the window, it is a Nitro design, and that made me think that I wondered if Retron, was already like innovating with the whole Nitro stuff. He already was given a green light to do something like this, and even this is the Nitro's laser, the green color as well, which made me think, oh, that actually would have been kind of cool as well, because in the original novel, it was just kind of worked on in the background and then put on the forefront immediately in book 4. But imagine if it did become a bit more gradual like in here. So once again, this is another story part which could actually be better. And so anyway, so yeah, I don't know why Mike was coming here in this version, but in the original it was more so with them being injured, and then they're like, oh, Earth's in danger, we do need to get going. But also Retron, I think he picked up eventually about Ozona come and be their fault, and therefore Retron then decides to to get hold of them then, because that's the reason. If they were the fault of it, then he's going to be the one to fix it, and that keeps Legion down. So as much as I don't like the Legion being leaked online kind of story, at least what happened here made more sense in the novel compared to what's happened here, because it just looks like Retron just fancied shutting them down, because they didn't even communicate about the whole Ozona thing. Maybe Retron could have been listening about it, because you can probably tell that they were talking about something like that anyway. Also, where's Airwolf gone? I swear she was around. Did she just disappear? Oh, so okay, they were talking about his own in the earth. Okay, so now Retron's like, we better stun them. So Airwolf's just vanished. Never mind. Anyway, so with putting them out of the way, Retron's like, send the servicemen to defend the earth. Okay, and then let's see what happens next. So yeah, this is meant to be the chain. That's not communicated very well here, but never mind. It doesn't even look like a chain, but never mind. And also, yeah, I just also remembered that it did also skip, because in this animation we saw that they were told about Hamilton and then pretty much find her immediately in that location. But yeah, the novel probably overblows it or overstuffs it, and even the storybook too, with capturing the city, making the people angry, then having a moment of doubt in that, which I never really liked looking back. But to go from A to B straight away, I think that's just kind of good. Because yeah, because I know that you need to apply enough depth in stories as possible, but at the same time, you have to be like efficient and almost make a story short as possible as well. So that's like some of the tips I've heard about, just because I know that some people like me want to create as many stories as possible, but when it comes to like the stories, like the narratives you're working on, they do have to be like as efficient as possible. Because something else I've been wary about is that, like for instance, if they had like two characters getting on with one another, and then they started, just like start connecting as friends or teammates. You're doing a fight scene in the climax. I do often wonder, like how much do you have to have the characters communicate with one another before going to the fight? But it's not so much as how much time they spend with one another. It's like what they talk about, how they connect, how they could work together, or how they change to like across the story. But yeah, like even if they spent, let's say, about 20 minutes before, like they only spend like 20 minutes with each other, and depending on what you can achieve, I think you could probably still make that possible. Yeah, personally, I would have had this whatever fictional friendship, flight made from the get go. But yeah, sometimes you can have characters meet others later and then connect like on the spot. To which yeah, it is possible. And I think that's just good advice for you and good advice for myself as well. Anyway, this is the city area. So probably one of my favourite settings. And whilst the road and pavement's a bit basic, but at least at least it's like nice and clear, pretty much. And so yeah, the soldiers have come down, and then this is where the surfsmen start arriving, and all of them did a collective thrust of air, so that's knocked over them in the vehicle, and looks like the vehicle's gone back up. What is it, Herdy or Herbie or Brum even? Anyway, so that is meant to be another car, and so Electron's arriving, and he's managed to shoot one of them, and that's a singular stone nose shooting, which knocks over Retron. But then the Legion arrive, however shape or form, they just were slightly delayed. Because in the novel and storybook, they had like the thing of, as they were covering, they had a quick chat, the group effort was start to work up again, and then the idea of applying the wheels to the Atone, because the Atone was also like on shutdown regarding the flight because of the Retron, but then they easily had the wheels in. So having the wheels here suddenly now, it's Retron's only delayed them, and I guess it just goes to show that even Retron couldn't like defend himself because well, he could have had like a riot shield of his own, like Nicole does, with her riot shield, but never mind. Anyway, so let's see how they solve the situation. Zombie stopped the lot earlier, and Dion is recovered because in the novel and storybook and novel, he was given a star to heal again, and then off he goes to help the residents. But in here, he just zooms to the city itself, and I guess it is like a city to protect, keep people away. Like we can infer that he's doing stuff like that, but without the inference, it's just like he's like, oh, I'm here, and then it's just leaving the Legion to do the work. But anyway, so let's see how this fight plays out. So the close range ones. Nicole and so during this, in the middle of this fight, Dion quickly says, the Tenga's healed with a star. So at least it's attempted, but not a lot of people would see that, and so that's not great communication. And I know that I don't know, it's weird because you do have to have enough going on to make it engaging, but you don't want to have people's eyes flickering everywhere either. And I think this is like a bit of a problem with this battle actually, because everyone's like too spread out, and it gets too messy in the corner as well. Like I know it's good to maintain continuity, like leaving those servicemen around, don't have them disappear like video game characters, but even then it's getting a tad too cramped. And so that's Pod's water going up. So Okay, so those, yeah, here will shop some quills. That's not clear that one, okay, but then some water shoots up to get that one away. Bit daft, but I kind of like it. But anyway, so just goes to show that I don't know what Arvin's doing there, but never mind. He hasn't really done anything. Neither has Nicole. She just had a quick chat with Dion. Also, did Dion said anything else? No, he just said he's healed and off it goes. Fair enough. Alright, so his owner's arrival. And you can see that the fight is not once again smaller, but instead of adding like a bit of fat by having Ozona like come in his own castle, creating like a final boss kind of vibe. But I think it would have made like more sense to go straight down to the city in that way instead of I don't know. I felt like the novel, justified it enough because Ozona was trying to recover after fighting Dion, and then did have to like make his own way because Slot and Dion were destroying his planet, neither of which was covered in this animation. But yeah, at least there was like some kind of reason why Dion why Ozona arrived in the way he does, far later in his own way. But have him come down the chain like that, once again it just makes it a bit more efficient. And something else I remember as well is that I remember getting like really tired of this animation at a point where I think this is why the battle is kind of small as it is because I just remember, after we were watching the first one and also just seeing what the previous clips like, I just remember thinking, you know what, if this format isn't working, but I still want to finish it off. And I guess it is just like story efficiency, showing that the Legion can evitate these stone nose quite easily compared to the servicemen, but even then, but not to mention why didn't the stone nose group up again, create another thrust of them, I'm not sure. But it does like just very little stone nose around anyway. And not to mention all the context missing because the storybook had little hints, but the second, the novel version had, some, what the goons think about the Legion and Ozona and how they were, like going back to their planet to not serve Ozona anymore. So there's bits and bobs like that that was cut from this film. Anyway, so Ozona arrives. I think the debris disappears. Yeah, it does for no reason. And after coming down, so this is where he tries to shoot lightning, but he gets absorbed by Zami, so that's a dress, which is kind of cool, because if the lightning seems to be his most powerful part, then I like the way it's communicated here, but I don't like Zami's position. That should have been like lightning that should have moved. Anyway, so Zona, so Zami tried to sap Ozona, I think so. Let's have a look. Okay, so he just quickly got down, but then Ozona, instead of zooming Zami away, instead Hellwolf just zooms on. She gets thrown out the way through telekinesis, which is a bit of a shame for our character, just leaving Arvin alone. So and then what's happening next? Oh yeah, so Ozona has a force field up that stops Arvin from going to him. Although it bounces Arvin away, okay. And then Hell sneaking down at the bottom. Okay, yeah, I kind of struggle to see because of the timeline, but you'll be able to see because you won't be seeing this same timeline. And Pod is also frozen the force field. I like that. It's I kind of like that. So yeah, I've done stuff. Pod freezes the force field. And that also communicates that not even the force field would work, especially if Pod can freeze it. And we can also infer that it's, although Pod showed one instance of fire powers, and that's been like a little tiny problem I admit with both storybook and the novel, where Pod using fire abilities is very far and few between, which I would like to work on more, or at least try and figure it out. And then, Zona tries to throw the sword into it correctly, but Pod catches it with ice, and even Zami catches Arvin as well. Oh, did he catch Arvin earlier? He might have. If he did. Okay, I like that part actually, yeah. You quickly catch Arvin to safety, yeah, that's kind of good. Yeah, Nicole wants 5 laser, so, because of the force field, so that laser didn't do nothing earlier. And then, so Pelf and Nicole are going, closer, and she has the shield up. Then, Pod's burning the sword. Okay, I can see a flame. And then, so Hellwolf then ambushes Ozona. So good for him. And then, so Pod's still focusing on Nichols and the Fort Sword on fire, trying to get rid of it, fair enough. And then Zami zaps Ozona, and I don't know what Arvin was doing, and maybe Nichols going to do a finishing blow. I have no idea what was happening there. Okay, let's just rewatch that just in case. So yeah, Zami just come closer to do a zap, which probably was like the finishing blow, but regardless, so Nicole probably was like distracting Ozona, being like, oh, got my shield up, and then Arvin somehow closing in, and Hellwolf was the one to ambush. And then Arvin just stands there, so was Hellwolf keeping him down. Maybe Arvin's helping keep Ozona down, to which fair enough, as Hellwolf probably, no, with Nicole probably having a weapon still out just in case. But then Zami's like, oh, got the finishing blow, and then he has to call the crossbows to indicate that Zona's gone. Which, I did prefer the novel version where once Ozona lost the grasp of his power, and because there was already hints of him getting weaker, that's where he probably might have been spared, because the power was gone from his grasp. You get what I mean, even if that wasn't proper English. Anyway, but then Ozona then dies, in his almost like a natural cause kind of thing, and just meant that the Legion didn't maliciously get rid of them, because they did take down their other villains in malicious ways as well, but at least they were going to be far more ongoing with the power. But once Ozona was stripped of that power, he could have been spared, or he just thrown in prison, but no mind. But that did inspire an idea where I think I would like to keep Ozona to make him more like a anti-hero for later on, even someone who probably won't help the Legion, but probably would still fight against Ironforce. Something like that could be kind of cool, instead of just almost like a fresher spin on the villain. Although, because as I'm starting from scratch, because with putting all of the stuff aside, you do get like a very tiny adventure story, which could still work, but I guess only time will tell. And but anyway, so Ozona's defeated, and I kind of like the skull and crossbow instead. That's actually written quite well, and you can see that it's made up of a lot more pixels, but it's like shrunken to create that, and you kind of see which assets had to be in more broad, or which one had to require more detail, but was still smaller. So that kind of thing did vary as well. It's just another interesting thing to point out with its pixels. And I think this image is kind of still, because they're like, everyone's done for. And I think that's Ozona's power emitting from the sword, so I think that's what they were watching. But because it's just that one frame, it just makes it hard to watch. But anyway, the public just comes about, and Retron wakes up angry. And then what now? I think Mike's about to go and see Retron, being like, the president wants to see you. So that's what's happening on the right. But you can see that the public's happy, because they see the city. But I just like how still everyone is. But anyway, so Retron's like, no, Mike's like, the president wants to see you, and then they have another post saying that this saved Earth again, which is kind of cool. And I kind of like that endearing payoff, and you can see that I was having, I don't know, Mountain Dew or something. And the bottle design is okay, but still, I don't like that blurry image. But basically, how Wolf's like, could do with going back to my home, which was not spoken about whatsoever in this animation, not even her race. So so this is like all of a sudden. But anyway, at least she's like taking back home, and the Northern Lights should have been moving as well, but no mind. But anyway, see her kind, and then she's going to be dropped off, which is nice. And then the head where she has the Sydney, where she stands out. But I could do with making these Numians stand out more. Yeah, that's Hellwolf's race, by the way. So this is the president's house. And then, so this is the president effectively saying, this is probably, you're doing, or, whoever else did it, we're scrapping that, because when you're ready, President. Yeah. Because the Legion are going to be the far more protective force compared to the servicemen, and it's this visual description is not great once again. Even because when creating my animations, they are definitely going to be a bit more action heavy, and if they are going to address themes, then they will be done like in effective ways. Definitely far more effective compared to this. And so this makes Retron angry once again, that like the whole him leading the servicemen and Legion being in the forefront, that's going to anger him. And then this is where Dion quickly sees the Tengas, probably like a thank you for using the star to get him back on track, despite having very little screen time. But yeah, Dion was far better in the previous film. But anyway, so the Tengas are about to open a satellite, which, yeah, I like the look of the gadget. It's kind of cool. I think it. I don't know, because the storybook made it the satellite like this massive thing that the Earth and other planets have, even the novels too. But to have these like smaller gadgets, which is probably like a cool way to communicate with the Legion when they're needed, it's kind of cool. And even payoffs like that make it so more tempting to see what the rest of the films would look like. But never mind. Anyway, so Dom goes away. He flies or jumps extremely slowly once again. And then this is where Zion 4's communicating with his other goons. Well, some of them. Looks like Moloch's still there, so that's interesting. Maybe Moloch like loses to Mercador later on. That could have been something. And I really like the look of these planets. Just makes me wonder what kind of planets they were. But maybe what I could have. Oh my gosh! I could have on the guide. I should have created what each planet looks like, because we see what the whole of Earth looks like, but we know what about the other planets. And I could have. I wonder what they would have. Which each of these planets on this screen could have been like. And also, I think it's a projection because it's slightly transparent, but I don't know where the projection's coming from, so that should have been better communicated. And also, is that the same communication spell colour as Ozona did earlier? It seems a bit too lime green, because lime green is meant to be like the life energy, and the communication spell is something different. And and also, despite spells not really being a thing in my universe, I still would like to carry over the communication spell. Just feels like a handy tool for all sorts of situations. If it's just going to be the only spell in the universe, then fair enough. But anyway, this scene is meant to cover that there's been a bit of an uprising, and therefore all of the goons have gone. As you can see on the projector, their skulls all over them, and because both the storybook and the novel indicated the uprising needed with Zion 4 dramatically losing more of his forces. It's not just the Legion; it's other planets managed to stand up against themselves, and maybe this is what the following stories could have done. To show more of that. Oh, you never know. Maybe it's the Legion hopping from one planet to the next. Just really showing how effective they are. And fighting these goons individually, because I don't think they're going to be the strongest kind of fighters on their own. But maybe the goons are just going to go about to try and maintain some kind of order, or trying to keep searching for the elements for Zion 4, because one of them is a mystery, that's for sure. So that probably would have been communicated better as well. But anyway, so all of those goons are gone, and then Zion 4's going to be angry again. Yeah, there you go. And then Moloch's like staring at its table, just wondering what to do. And who knows what could have happened afterwards. But that's the end of this story, so I guess you could say that Zion 4 probably might have given up, and so does Moloch, with all of the goons gone, and the Legion have kept saving the Earth. And that is pretty much the part 2 of the 2 films. And I think we'll quickly talk about what book 3, 4, and 5 will look like, because after recently recording for the novel commentaries, there's a lot of like fat in those films as well. Even book 3 was kind of like really flawed at a point where that needed a starting over, because someone's had the idea of splitting the team of 6 in book 3, so maybe I could have done that if some were going to drop off the elements or go for the storm. But maybe what I might have done is just have it so it's just just going for the storm and just keeping the elements on them as slight protection, or the life force, or even force could have been kept safe on Earth still, and the life force still goes down the spout, because they could have still encountered the Titans. Maybe they could shed with the Sotchers, and then that could have dropped off that way. And then this Liverock stuff might have been cut out if it didn't really mean much, or maybe it could be like a secondary boss. And then I think this animation, the book 3 version, I think would have fought Torrid immediately instead of having to move on another planet. Just keep fighting on Zami's planet, to make it shorter then. And then Sliver Coming to Earth might have been cut, and I don't know, because I didn't really know about Book Three's flaws until recently. So back then, I think I would have probably still kept the Hash 2, maybe handed in the Life Force, just for the Titrans, especially when the Titrans mean a lot more to the story than the Sotras do. And probably no flashback of the Elemental War either, so that already makes it shorter. Book 4, however, I can see it playing out, just a lot more briefer, with maybe with no day-to-day routine with Mechadron or the Legion, and then Retron's like, oh, we've got these defenses. The Legion's going to be like, no, we're taking Dion with us, if Dion's still going to be taken down at the end of the third animation, and also I think Garvin's still going to go as well. And then, then the Legion probably would have got Dion out probably like as soon as, but then acted up, probably attacking the bases of the town, which, would have made it, saves the hassle of going to the town. And then they probably would have flown straight to the Titran planet to say settling out the jungle first, and then they probably would have gone to the Morphil planet, and maybe they could have been like earlier today, their pod could have, arrived at the planet and fought against Mechadron immediately, only to lose, and then maybe Retron's attack on the planets might have happened sooner, so therefore no coverage on the Veronic planet, and then the flooding would have happened, and the Legion would have been, just forced to exile from Earth. And then as for the fifth book, I won't do this for the other stories. What would the sequel look like? The sequel's already kind of brief, so with the comic book, so I think that's already as brief as possible. But if anything, just the new Legion stuff, not the new Legion. But anyway, book 5, how would I show that one? No flashbacks once again. And then, maybe maybe Xanthor goes for like the Titrans first, to get one of the powers immediately, or maybe the Sotras if they were still around, and then maybe no Fletcher if I was starting to lose interest in him. But maybe if I was like trying to protect the motor immediately, so it just meant that the Titrans fight on Earth would have been a bit more worthwhile. Maybe the teams might have still been split, and the Life Force could have still been taken, either as an introduction idea or just taken later on, and then pretty much straight to the Morphin battle. Yeah, because book 5 is actually like far more brief, despite rounding up a lot of bits and bobs. It might be the shortest novel of the 5 because of it. Even the 5th storybook covers the least because of how extensive the Timefall battle was. But anyway, so that's how I think I would have jumped stories down, which is interesting, but it doesn't sound as exciting when looking back. But not gonna lie, when I think about things getting adapted, I always find the changes extremely interesting. Whether it goes from the Narnia books onto the films, or how Avatar: The Last Airbender, going from the cartoon into the live action show. I just find it interesting what they, chose to prioritise and what they cut out, and I just find that aspect very fascinating. Even how the new Harry Potter show is going to cover more aspects of the books, that too could have been really interesting too. So I just find it really interesting. How you can like shift stories around to make it just as effective somewhat. But anyway, so so it is just a whole adaptation thing. The changes that are made, that is just extremely interesting. But onto the story itself. So as I won't go for the whole sequel formula, I guess it does carry over from the previous book, like kind of other threats and seeing how Xanthor's doing. So I like those kind of parts at least, and it's carrying over Bretron's frustration with him wanting to be on top. So it does communicate those kind of parts. And this story's a bit not only slow in its pacing, but the action's not as good, and the structure's not as satisfying as well, because it's not really worked with that 8-act structure, which I really like, and the previous film did that better. And it's just even like the constant use of visuals just goes to show that it's not a very action, very heavy, short story when it kind of should have been. Just had the visuals like pop over and again. It's just very slow and frustrating and pondering. We don't really learn anymore. And what I will say is that I like the colour scheme of this film. I think like the previous film, in a way, it stuck to greens mostly. This film stuck to the blues mostly, which yeah, I don't remember that being intentional, but to see the this consistent scheme, it's kind of cool. And you see the greens come up every now and again, even that's still dark blue-ish, despite the green scenery. But they have to stick to the colour scheme all the time, just as enough as a like enough a consistent style, which yeah, this film definitely has. It's just flawed, with the pacing of the filmmaking and that. Yeah, the animation's a lot weaker in this as well, and if labelling a couple of highlights, like the canyon part, that fight seems kind of cool, and just seeing in a bit more efficient way of the battle, of how Ozona tries every trick, and how Dion tries to struggles to land a hit, and how Ozona got defeated. Yeah, because sometimes efficient fighting is, it's kind of cool because it's just immediately showing um, how characters solve situations. But I'm personally more of a fan of like lengthier fight scenes. But sometimes, but even lengthy ones would need enough justification, and also how it progresses the plot and adds to the characters and that. So yeah, and yeah, and I do find the cliffhangers interesting as well. The satellites and Seinfeld losing screens. There's parts like that, so that's what make it interesting. But yeah, just imagine if I was making more of these films, they would not do well. Like I don't think they've been viewed whatsoever recently. I don't even know about the other films as well because my YouTube statistics are only like showing the shorts I've been doing. Like all of the comic book pages and that. So I don't know how well any of my animations are doing because they have had like a couple of times where they've encountered the other films and viewed them, but I think they are fortunately getting a bit um, let's say just a bit like hidden and more under the radar, which is partially a shame. Like, and I don't really associate myself with those films anymore. I just getting like a small retrospect to just explain how the whole thing was done, and then just focused on my new direction, which I've mentioned numerous times, and will continue to mention them numerous times. Not gonna lie, this is a second attempt of finishing this all of this commentary stuff, and this was one of the last ones because this one I had to do again because my previous copies somehow had no audio, and I blame PowerPoint for that. So yeah, I just underscored that of my new direction because this approach, what you're seeing, it clearly doesn't work. Not very engaging, too slow, not very much with the theming, and even if this film does have like moments that were better than the original as well, yes, I don't think that makes it. It doesn't add enough. And yeah, but at least you still see like other parts where this pixelated style could still work, and just know where to improve on that. And so yeah, I think that's all I can say. I think. But yeah, I think there are like instances where I'm still quite pleased with how this 8-bit look has really like how it has carried over from the look of the storybooks, for instance, and yeah, that I find like really cool as well. But as you know, there are other parts that don't look so good. Like Howell's design, the studio's design, even the look of the green Jeep earlier. Yeah, that hasn't translated too well. Um, but yeah, because no wonder we'll discontinue this as well. Because after doing the novel commentaries, those stories were actually kind of flawed despite having a lot of interesting moments and potential, and definitely some good genuine moments as well. But they were just too flawed, and I can't just keep bringing up the story again. And even if my mindset is currently on one fictional universe to continue upon for pretty much the rest of my life, um, yeah, this is I just can't believe I just stuck with this for more like 2 or 3 or even more years. Trying to find ways to connect this very story, but after just seeing the flaws of it, yeah, it's time for a brand new direction. And so yeah, I think we'll start with that there. I think. So yeah, very interesting to look back on this one, because I thought this was going to be a bit of a drag to watch. It was at times, but I did see some like moments of potential, some bits I quite like. But I think the first film is still a lot better. But not to mention the first reboot animation, or at least the pilot of it, depending how I'm going to expand it, that was a whole heap better. Like one of the best things I've created in a long time, that's for sure. So I'll keep you hyped for that. But considering the amount of commentary stuff, because I'm releasing one per video per day and about 4 shorts a day, because they're all just pages, so everyone needs a bit more to work with. But yeah, it'll just be, all the commentary stuff should be all released by the end of this year, and then see the direction then. But anyway, so let's start right there, and so yeah, I'll see you next time.